I've got Leighton Smith here on College Football Addiction from Tuffy Talk. We're going to talk a little NC State Clemson this weekend. Leighton, I appreciate you for joining me, man.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here. Excited for this game this weekend. It's definitely going to say a lot, I think, about both teams for the rest of the season. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. Certainly some questions for both teams. Maybe a few more on you guys' side. Going up to Death Valley, never an easy thing to do. But a game that NC State won last year. Before we jump too far into talking about the game, what's the mood right now overall? I know there's a QB change. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what's the mood overall in Raleigh and around NC State?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of shock. I mean, I would be lying if I said otherwise. I think that for me and for a lot of state fans, we had high expectations coming into the season of competing for the ACC title, which we have not been able to get in football for over 30 years. With the amount of resources that was put in terms of getting, a lot of weapons between Noah Rogers, keeping Kevin Concepcion, going again Jordan Waters from Duke, etc. And then obviously with the highlight of getting Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, who was a three-time Conference Player of the Year during his time at Coastal. There's a lot of high expectations combined with having one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and Tony Gibson. A lot of excitement, and obviously 3 games in, you definitely did not see that, but so we were hoping honestly that it didn't come to this of having to rally behind a true freshman quarterback and being like, oh, okay, look at the future we got here for sure. So we were hoping we wouldn't have to do that, but I mean, from what we saw from him in the last half of Louisiana Tech game and the confidence he was playing with and the uh, ability he was able to find and get the ball to the weapons that we have that I just spoke of, it's kind of like, hey, let's see what happens. So.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Bailey will make a start in. It doesn't really get any tougher than making a start in Death Valley.
No.
Even being an FSU guy, I'd say that might be a little tougher than even going to Doak. But yeah, 6-1, half a dozen other, right? Like neither would be easy. But
Sure.
certainly this year, right, going up against Clemson and that defense. What are kind of the expectations for him in this game? Like, do you think Doran? I mean, just nothing to lose. Like, go let it all hang out there. Do you think they try and play more conservatively? Like, what do you really expect from him in that offense this weekend?
I mean, for me, it's kind of hard to really explain that because I guess really kind of what I'm about to say might seem crazy because of the fact that we are a 20 and a half point underdog, which is a crazy thing to even think of, being that when this line opened before the season started, that Clemson was like a 6-7 point favorite, and now we're a 20 and a half point underdog. But I mean, for me, I would say the expectation is still to win. And I think that going into Death Valley, you can't play conservatively. You can't play on your heels. You got to be willing to, make the plays needed to get ahead and to stay ahead. I mean, for me, we did our preview. Part one came out yesterday. Part two is coming out today. But I mean, the biggest key to it is that we got to be either right there with Clemson or ahead. If we fall behind by, in my opinion, 2 possessions or more, then it's just going to be so hard to ask a true freshman quarterback to lead, an offense to get us back into the game, especially in such a tough environment like Death Valley. Now, but I mean, the cards have aligned perfectly where, in my opinion, where we're not having to face Death Valley at night, a noon game for sure. So that's going to make a little bit of a difference. But also too the fact that overall we're pretty, for the most part, healthy. Besides obviously losing Grayson, to what seems to be a concussion last week during the Louisiana Tech game. But also too with the fact that I think this is honestly one of the more questionable Clemson teams that State has faced yet in quite some time under Dabo Sweeney. Still, in my opinion, a quarterback that has not proven himself to take that elite step yet. He looked really, really good against App State for sure, but you look at that, you look at Georgia, and you say, well, which Cade Klubnik are we going to see this year? So I think that's why I say that this is going to be a big game for both teams because, is it that Cade Klubnik is now the real deal, or is it that, hey, NC State, we can finally take that step and beat Clemson in Death Valley for the first time in over 20 years?
Yeah, you mentioned like going for it, and it's different teams, different situations. But I think about, I just think about Kentucky and Georgia last week. I don't know if you got a chance to check that out or not, but it felt like Kentucky played not to lose, right?
Yes,
Very
very
conservative.
much so.
Didn't go for it on fourths.
Mhm.
Just and I get it. You want to take points when they're there, but to me, when you do that as a big underdog against a great team, right? And maybe Clemson's not a great team. I get the differences, but when you do that, you 95% of the time or more, you end up losing, right? And
Right.
that's even if you're keeping it close, right? And so, man, you got to go for it. So I am in complete agreement there.
Mhm.
You mentioned Clemson, and so their defense held up for a half against Georgia. Georgia looks kind of funky, and then again looked funky again against Kentucky this week. So it's hard to know. It was Clemson's defense like that good against Georgia, or is Georgia just kind of weird right now to start the year because they didn't look very good last week either in that Kentucky game that we mentioned.
Agreed.
But let's talk about NC State's defense, and I do think Tennessee is a really good team that should finish in the top 8-ish. I think they're going to beat the heck out of Oklahoma this weekend. We'll see, I guess, how all
Yes.
these go down. But I think Tennessee is really, really good. But do you have some confidence in NC State's defense to play better than they did a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing, to kind of point out is that, they always say the saying, which is don't always look at the box score or don't always believe the box score. And so somebody might say, "Wow, NC State defense gave up 51 points to Tennessee. Like they were rough." But I mean, our defense only gave up 13 points on defense in the first half. So I mean, if you would ask me, "Hey, Leighton, we gave up only 13 points on defense to Tennessee in the first half. How are you feeling right now?" I'd be like, I'm feeling amazing. Like we
Yeah.
must be winning this game. We got to be. Like we got to be up by a touchdown or more right now. But obviously, between the pick six, and offense not being able to, finish drives, unfortunately, just the defense held up for as long as they could, and then it was just like, all right, you know, it's just Tennessee's
Snowballed.
skill
Yeah.
level just took over exactly and just snowballed. And again, I mean, I would not be surprised whatsoever, honestly, if Tennessee is a top 4, top 5 team this season. I mean, they're so stacked, so loaded, especially on the defensive line. I don't think they get enough talk on that. But anyway, so talking about kind of defense for this game. Yeah, I mean, Caden Fordham played really, really well against Louisiana Tech. Being a guy that's taken over for an All-American, award-winning linebacker in Peyton Wilson, those are big shoes to fill. But was really happy to see him step up, make some big plays. But also too against Louisiana Tech, we didn't have Aiden White. It was all ACC cornerback, and then Brandon Sisse got knocked out during the game as well. And from what Doran said, both guys are going to be playing. So again, it's another situation where we should be very healthy. Now, the biggest thing that we need to improve on, in my opinion, defensive line. We need to improve. We need to get to the quarterback more. Davin Van, our graduate defensive end, has been the lock, in my opinion, on this defense so far. He's made some big plays that have led to 2 pick sixes so far this season. But again, we need guys like Travali Price, Red Hibbler, these guys, to Brandon Cleveland, even to step up a little bit and make some momentum changing plays and get some sacks or some hurries and force Cade Klubnik to be uncomfortable. But also too as well, we got to be able to fill up those gaps and stop Phil Maffa as well. I mean, Phil Maffa is no doubt the real deal when it comes to the running back position as well. So I mean, it's going to be a tough challenge for sure. But I think a little bit of it is, again, like, is it that Clemson's offense really is as legit as App State made them look? Or do they actually have more questions like Georgia made it seem? But we'll find out here this weekend. Also, too, can Tony Gibson and the genius that we've seen behind him as well use what this game is going to mean and use that to his advantage? Because I truly have a feeling like even during the offseason, he had to have this game circled. He had to be preparing for this game
Yeah.
well before, even this game week as well. So we'll see. Kind of a lot of combinations, and we'll see if NC defense could take a step forward.
What is there a specific matchup, offensive line, defensive line, your freshman quarterback in the secondary, Maffa against your linebacker, whatever. Is there a specific matchup that concerns you the most in this game?
Offensive line versus their defensive line, 100%. For really a couple reasons. One, run blocking wise, we just have not been where we need to be this season through 3 games. A lot of people, especially in State fans, are very easy right now to poke fingers at the running backs with Jordan Waters and these guys, not being able to take a step forward. But I mean, I believe before Louisiana Tech, we had a little bit over 250 yards rushing and 215 of them were after contact. So meaning, I mean, like pretty much every single run play we've run this season has been either a defender has gotten to the running back at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, which is not what you want to see. And it's going to be tough for any running back to be successful in that area. So, and especially starting with a true freshman quarterback, you got to establish a run. You got to take a little bit of pressure off the quarterback and, force the defense to bring some guys into the box. And so that's just going to be the more benefit, but also too, from the offensive line to step up and keep the pocket as open as possible for CJ and give him time as well. Have his back a little bit. Know that, hey, listen, we got to do our part, especially since again we have 4 grad transfers starting on our offensive line. So I really am expecting better from this offensive line, and especially highlighted from a guy who's a potential first round draft pick in Anthony Belton, and then a guy in the middle like Zeke Corral, who's been a 13 game starter for Notre Dame, transferring over to NC State. So yeah, it's like, all right, this is the time where if we're going to step up, this is the time to do it. Is against a very talented Clemson defensive line, but I think honestly, this might not be a very hot take, but you've seen a way tougher defensive line, in my opinion, in Tennessee, and so. Clemson's very talented, but I'm still sitting here saying, hey, listen, what you saw against Tennessee, that's probably going to be a little bit tougher than what you're going to see here against Clemson. But might be a hot take, might not. But time will tell, I guess, right?
Yeah, we'll find out by about 3:00 on, or maybe even earlier, like 1:30 on Saturday. We'll have
Agreed.
a pretty good idea.
Agreed.
All right. Do you have you said you had your preview part 1, part 2. Do you have a prediction in this one? Have you made a score, or do you have a lean in how you think this goes? What are you calling on Saturday?
Yeah, so for me, it's tough because this is going to be the first time that NC State has started a true freshman quarterback since Philip Rivers. So that means it's been over 25. It's been 25 years since we've done that, and so and just like you said, and we're not just starting on the road, we're starting in Death Valley. So definitely a tough challenge for sure. But I also am sitting here saying, you know what, I've said before the season even started that I predicted this game was going to be a win. And, I know Doran well enough to know that, I mean, he's typically a coach that does very well after losses in terms of getting the guys flipped around, refocused, and getting them to use that loss as motivation. Now, I know that you say, well, you didn't lose last week against Louisiana Tech. I mean, let's be real. Watching that game, that was borderline just absolute disaster. So, I mean, I'm basically going to view that as a loss, even though in my head, even though it wasn't technically a loss on the record sheet. So, I mean, for me, I have this game as a win, believe it or not. And again, that's going to be a hot take, but I'm going to say 31-28 NC State. I think that, kind of looking back at it, because that was actually the score prediction I gave in our preview. But I think, honestly, thinking back on it, that it's probably going to be a little bit lower scoring than 59 points combined. So I'm going to go more like 24-21, because I think that if we're going to win this game, it's going to be because defense made key plays and gave CJ opportunities to take advantage and get the ball to guys like Kevin Concepcion, Noah Rogers, to make a couple of touchdowns and get ahead and stay ahead as well. So on here, after thinking back about it a little bit, I'm going to stick with 24-21 as they stay for the win.
Yeah, I like the lower scoring too. I do think NC State covers. I don't know if I'm ready to jump all the way in with 2 feet on NC State winning, but the biggest thing to me is I don't trust Clemson's offense enough, and to think that they could. I mean, because you got to think, like, worst case scenario, NC State's probably putting up 14 points, 10, 14 points, somewhere in there. Like, they'll score a couple of times. And so are we really trusting Clemson's offense to get up to like 30, 35 points? And I don't know that I'm there. So I think NC State covers. Again, I don't know that I'm ready to jump in with both feet, but maybe after a mimosa or two on Saturday morning, I'll jump in with you and predict NC State to win. But as of right now, I think Clemson probably gets it done, but I do think NC State covers. But I like it, I do. I think if it's low scoring, that certainly benefits NC State. I don't have a ton of confidence in the true freshman going out there and putting up 35 plus points, in Death Valley, which would be remarkable if he does. But Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's a slept-on game a little bit. I think people, the big spread, NC State's not any good because of last week, or Tennessee, or just whatever. I think it'll be a better game than people expect, and I do think that there's something. Yeah, these two programs are something kind of special a lot of times when they meet. So
Yes.
I'm certainly excited for it. So Leighton, where can folks follow you? Where can they find more of your work? Where can they check out Tuffy Talk and
Yeah.
get more of your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, on YouTube, if you look up Tuffy Talk, that's where we'll be. But also too on all of our social media, we're actually at Tuffy Talk now. So on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. But also too, we also export all of our videos as well into audio form, so you can find us as well on Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on there as well through Tuffy Talk. And yeah, talk all things NC State, including outside of football as well, all major sports within NC State, and even things like wrestling, gymnastics, you name it. We really do pride ourselves in covering all things NC State.
I love it. It's
Yep.
good stuff.
Yep.
Man, I appreciate you a ton for joining me. Good luck on Saturday, and we'll hopefully get you back on here soon to talk again.
Yeah, appreciate you. Go Pack, y'all.